The helicopter's rotors fade to silence. You're standing in a small clearing where minutes ago there was an emergency landing, and now, nothing. The pilot said he'd return with help, but the green wall before you breathes with a life that knows no schedules, no promises. You have a knife, a water bottle, perhaps a lighter if you're fortunate. The jungle watches, waiting to see if you understand its rules. For the next 24 hours, this ancient forest will test every instinct you possess. Indigenous tribes have survived here for 10,000 years, learning secrets passed down through countless generations. European explorers who ignored this wisdom rarely lasted a week. The Amazon doesn't kill through dramatic attacks. It kills through ignorance, through small mistakes that compound into catastrophe. But if you listen to what the forest teaches, if you respect the knowledge carved into this ecosystem over millennia, you can emerge when dawn breaks on your second day, alive and transformed. The first 60 seconds determine everything. Your heart hammers against your ribs, adrenaline screaming at you to run, to thrash through the undergrowth toward imagined civilization. Stop. Breathe. The worst decision you can make is panic-driven movement. Sit down where you are. The jungle respects stillness more than frantic energy. Place your back against a tree. Choose one with smooth bark, avoiding the fuzzy varieties that harbor stinging caterpillars invisible to untrained eyes. Close your eyes and listen. This is your new language. The constant buzz of insects means normal jungle rhythm. Sudden silence means a predator moves nearby. Bird alarm calls, sharp, repetitive, warn of danger. The Amazon communicates constantly. You simply haven't learned to hear it yet. Assess what you have. Empty your pockets completely. Examine every item. That crumpled receipt might serve as fire tinder. Shoelaces become cordage. A belt buckle reflects sunlight for signals. Indigenous survivors work with less. They weave carrying baskets from palm fronds in minutes, create cutting tools from split bamboo, extract fire from forest materials without matches. You have advantages they wouldn't, so use them wisely. Your body can survive 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 hours without shelter in harsh conditions, 3 minutes without air. This hierarchy never changes. The Amazon's suffocating humidity means you're losing water through sweat faster than you realize. Dehydration steals your judgment before you notice the symptoms. Finding water is your first mission, but finding the right water separates the living from the dead. The forest holds more water than any environment on Earth, yet most of it will sicken or kill you. Never, under any circumstances, drink directly from the chocolate-brown rivers. These tributaries carry microscopic parasites that colonize your intestines, bacteria that trigger hemorrhaging, and protozoa that induce fever dreams within hours. The locals know this. They have immunity built over lifetimes, and even they boil water meticulously. Look up instead. Vines as thick as your forearm dangle from the canopy, some carrying clean water trapped in cellular compartments. But here, the jungle's cruelty emerges through deception. 3 types of vines might look identical. One holds pure water, one holds bitter but harmless sap, and one contains latex that causes throat swelling severe enough to suffocate you. The locals distinguish them by the color of the wood when cut. Yellowish means toxic. White pith means safe water. Reddish means bitter but survivable. Cut the vine at shoulder height first, then make a second cut near the ground. If you cut the bottom first, capillary action sucks the water back up into the plant before you can catch it. Let the liquid drip into your mouth without letting the vine touch your lips. Some external bark surfaces carry irritating compounds. Smell the water first. If it smells like anything other than rain, discard that vine and try another. Bromeliads, those spiky plants growing on tree branches, collect rainwater in their central cups. A single large specimen holds a liter or more. But this water has been sitting, and sitting water in the tropics becomes a bacterial nursery within days. Strain it through cloth if you have any. A torn shirt piece works, then boil it if possible. If you cannot make fire yet, save this as an emergency backup, not a first choice. Bamboo sections naturally compartmentalize water inside their segments. Shake the stalk near your ear. If you hear sloshing, cut through the segment wall carefully. The water inside bamboo has been filtered through the plant's vascular system and is typically safe, though boiling remains ideal. The challenge is identifying true bamboo versus similar-looking poisonous plants. True bamboo has circular nodes every foot or so, and the stems are completely hollow except at these joints. If you have a container, your water bottle, a piece of bamboo, even a large leaf fashioned into a cone, morning dew becomes drinkable water. Before the sun climbs high, drag your shirt through wet vegetation, then wring it into your container. This method is labor-intensive and yields little, but indigenous hunters traveling light rely on it regularly. They know which leaves, broad, waxy varieties, collect the most dew and harbor the fewest toxins. Boiling water requires fire, and fire in the Amazon is both salvation and surrender. The jungle's dampness fights every flame, but it can be done. First, gather tinder, the driest material you can find. Dead palm fronds hanging inside the tree's crown often stay dry even after rain. Shave bark from dead standing trees. The inside layers remain powdery while outside surfaces are soaked. Tree resin, if you can find it oozing from trunks, burns even when damp. The fire itself must be built on a platform raised above the wet ground. Lay green sticks across two parallel logs, creating an elevated stage. Dead wood on the jungle floor absorbs moisture like a sponge, but dead wood still attached to standing dead trees, particularly smaller branches halfway up the trunk, remains relatively dry. Snap these off rather than picking up ground wood. Listen for the crack that indicates dryness. Wet wood bends rather than snapping cleanly. If you have a lighter, guard it like your life depends on it, because it does. If you have no fire-starting tools, you're facing the same challenge indigenous peoples mastered, the bow drill. Find a straight, dead stick for the spindle, a flat piece of wood for the fireboard, and construct a bow using a bent green branch and cordage. Your shoelaces, strips of clothing, or twisted bark fiber. This method demands persistence measured in hours, not minutes. Your hands will blister. Your patience will crack. But indigenous children learn this skill because it works every time when executed correctly. Fire provides more than just water purification. It offers psychological comfort in a realm where humans rank somewhere in the middle of the food chain. It keeps certain creatures at a respectful distance, though not all, which we'll address. And crucially, fire makes rescue possible through smoke signals visible above the canopy during daylight hours. With water secured, or at least a plan to secure it, you need shelter before the afternoon rains arrive. The Amazon doesn't sprinkle, it dumps. 10 inches of rain might fall in an afternoon storm, and if you're exposed, hypothermia becomes a real threat despite the equatorial location. Wet clothing against skin in wind, even tropical wind, leaches body heat faster than you'd imagine. Your shelter serves 3 purposes: keeping rain off your body, keeping you off the ground, and providing psychological boundaries against the night. Never sleep directly on the jungle floor. The soil seethes with life you don't want meeting your skin. Bullet ants whose sting causes waves of pain for 24 hours, wandering spiders whose venom causes priapism and respiratory failure, and parasitic botflies that lay eggs in warm-blooded flesh. The simplest effective shelter is a lean-to built against a fallen log or between 2 trees. Use your knife to cut broad leaves. Palm fronds work best, overlapped like roof shingles starting from bottom and working upwards so rain runs off rather than seeping through. Avoid using leaves with white sap when you cut them. Many Amazonian plants produce latex that causes contact dermatitis, leaving your skin blistered and infected. Create a raised sleeping platform inside using straight branches laid perpendicular to two support logs. This keeps you 8 inches off the ground, enough to avoid most crawling creatures while remaining stable enough to sleep. Layer more palm fronds on top for padding and insulation. Indigenous builders complete this type of shelter in under an hour. Your first attempt might take 3, but it will save your life when the sky opens. Position your shelter away from the water source, not because of flooding risk, but because rivers are highways for the jungle's most dangerous residents. Jaguars patrol waterways, hunting capybaras and caimans at dusk. They rarely attack humans, but rarely means it happens. More importantly, caimans, the Amazon's crocodilians, nest along banks and are fiercely territorial during breeding season. Black caimans reach 16 feet in length and have been documented attacking boats. The insects, however, pose a more persistent threat than any predator. Mosquitoes in the Amazon carry malaria, dengue fever, and yellow fever. You have no vaccine, no preventative medication. Your only defense is barrier and smoke. Keep your fire smoking heavily using green leaves once you have solid coals. Rub the ash on exposed skin. It's not pleasant, but indigenous peoples have used ash as insect repellent for millennia. The alkaline compounds interfere with the mosquitoes' CO2 sensors. Tuck your pants into your socks, your shirt into your pants, creating sealed seams. Check for ticks every few hours. Amazonian ticks carry bacterial infections that cause fever and confusion, symptoms that could be fatal when you're alone. The forest's smallest threats often prove the deadliest, which is why indigenous peoples maintain such meticulous hygiene despite appearing to live casually within the jungle. As dusk approaches, the jungle transforms. The daytime creatures retreat and the night shift emerges. This is when you must be at your shelter, fire-lit, body protected. The sounds multiply, hooting, clicking, rustling, and occasionally a roar that vibrates your chest cavity. Howler monkeys announce territory with calls audible for 3 miles, sounding like dinosaurs despite being 30-pound primates. Jaguars grunt warnings that carry through the trees. Caimans bellow during mating season with such volume the water ripples. But the silence frightens more than the noise. When the jungle goes suddenly completely quiet, something apex is moving. Freeze! Control your breathing. Wait. The creature will pass. Trying to see what caused the silence risks drawing attention to yourself. Indigenous hunters know this instinctively. The forest's silence is a language announcing danger, and the wise response is stillness. Your fire must be tended through the night. Not because every creature fears flames, many don't, but because it preserves your night vision and maintains morale. Keep a substantial pile of wood within arm's reach before darkness falls completely. Gathering wood at night is how people get injured. Stumbling into thorns, stepping on snakes, walking into spider webs strung at face height whose residents possess neurotoxic venom. Speaking of snakes, the Amazon hosts more venomous species than any ecosystem on Earth. Bushmasters grow to 12 feet, delivering hemotoxic venom in quantities that cause massive tissue necrosis. Fur de lances lie motionless on trails, counting on their camouflage, striking only when stepped on. Coral snakes display bright warning colors, but several harmless species mimic this pattern, and distinguishing them requires expertise you don't have. The universal rule: don't touch any snake. Don't step over logs without looking behind them, and never put your hands where you can't see. If bitten, panic kills faster than most venoms. Stay calm. Immobilize the affected limb and keep it below heart level. Do not cut the wound. Do not suck the venom. Do not apply tourniquets. These methods, popularized by outdated survival guides, increase tissue damage. Your goal is slowing venom circulation while remaining functional enough to survive until rescue. Most Amazonian pit viper bites, while agonizing and disfiguring, aren't immediately lethal to adults. You have hours, possibly days. Fear and exertion accelerate venom, spread through increased heart rate and circulation. The plant kingdom offers equal danger. That beautiful red fruit, hanging temptingly from a low branch, probably poisonous. The universal edibility test that survival manuals recommend, rubbing on skin, touching to lips, tiny taste amounts, assumes you have days to experiment and medical backup. You have neither. The indigenous people's approach is simpler. Eat nothing you haven't seen animals eating. Monkeys and birds have similar digestive chemistry to humans. If you observe capuchin monkeys feeding on certain fruits, those fruits are likely safe. However, some safe-looking plants prove devastating. Manchineel trees found along Amazon tributaries produce apple-like fruits that cause severe oral burns and digestive hemorrhaging. Even standing under these trees during rain causes skin blistering from contaminated water dripping off leaves. The Carib people used manchineel sap to poison arrow tips, effective enough to paralyze Spanish conquistadors in armor. For actual food within your 24-hour window, insects provide the safest protein. Palm grubs, those thick white larvae found inside dead palm trunks, are energy-dense and safe raw or cooked. Roast them over your fire if squeamish, but indigenous children eat them raw as snacks. Ants, except bullet ants, are edible though acidic tasting. Remove wings and legs from flying ants before consumption. Termites provide protein with minimal risk. Their mounds dot the forest floor, and you can harvest hundreds by breaking open a section. Avoid brightly colored insects. Nature's warning that toxins await inside those pretty shells. Stick to dull browns and blacks. The jungle doesn't waste energy on color displays without reason. Those neon blue butterflies? Harmless. That small orange frog. One touch transfers enough batrachotoxin to stop your heart. Indigenous hunters extract this poison for blow darts, carefully handling the frogs using leaves as gloves. Fish from the rivers require knowledge you likely don't possess. Piranhas, despite Hollywood's portrayal, rarely attack living humans. They're scavengers primarily, though they will bite if you thrash in water appearing injured. The real danger is candiru, tiny parasitic catfish that follow urine streams into urethras where their spines deploy, requiring surgical removal. Never urinate while standing waist-deep in Amazonian rivers. This isn't folklore, it's documented medical literature. Electric eels inhabit slow-moving waterways, capable of delivering 860-volt shocks. These aren't eels at all, but knife fish. And while a single shock won't kill a healthy adult, repeated shocks cause respiratory paralysis and drowning. Wade through unknown waters slowly, probing ahead with a long stick. The locals do this instinctively, and their children learn before they can swim properly. Stingrays bury themselves in river sand, invisible until you step on them. The barbed spine in their tail injects venom that causes excruciating pain, possible cardiac symptoms, and infection risks from river bacteria introduced deep into the wound. Shuffle your feet rather than taking steps. This gives buried stingrays time to swim away, rather than reflexively striking. This technique, called the stingray shuffle, is taught to children living along Amazonian waterways from the moment they start walking. Your 24 hours are passing. The sun drops rapidly at this latitude. One moment it's afternoon light, then twilight lasts perhaps 20 minutes before complete darkness. Use the remaining light to prepare everything you'll need through the night. Wood for the fire stacked within reach, water supply topped off, food gathered if you've found any, shelter reinforced against wind. Mark your shelter's location visibly. Break branches at eye height, forming a rough X pattern leading back from the water source. If you must leave your shelter in daylight tomorrow to search for rescue or resources, These markers prevent you from becoming lost within sight of safety. The jungle's uniformity is psychological warfare. Every tree resembles the last. Every direction looks identical. And without landmarks, people walk in circles, believing they're traveling straight lines. If rescue hasn't arrived by dawn tomorrow, your survival priorities shift. But for these 24 hours, your mission is simply not dying. That means maintaining your fire, staying dry, avoiding creatures that consider humans food, and not ingesting plants, animals, or water that will sicken you faster than dehydration would. Navigation beyond your immediate area requires understanding the forest's subtle language. Trees covered heavily with moss on one side indicate the southern exposure in the southern hemisphere, northern exposure in the northern. Termite mounds and wasp nests preferentially face certain directions to catch morning sun and avoid afternoon rain. Rivers flow toward larger rivers, which eventually reach human settlements. But following rivers means navigating terrain that channels predators, deals with flooding, and encounters the densest vegetation. If you hear helicopter rotors, you have seconds to create visible signals. Your fire's smoke serves this purpose if you've maintained it, but green branches thrown onto hot coals create thick white smoke visible above the canopy. 3 fires in a triangle is the international distress signal, but constructing 3 fires when maintaining one is challenging becomes impractical in rainforest humidity. Mirror flashes from any reflective surface, your phone screen, a piece of metal, even a CD if you inexplicably have one, can be seen for miles. Catch the sun's reflection and aim toward any aircraft sound, even if you can't see the source. Search pilots scan for exactly these flashes. They cut through foliage that would hide visual searches. The psychological battle might exceed the physical one. Solitude in the Amazon induces a particular form of dread that indigenous peoples respect through ritual and companionship. The sound of your own breathing becomes loud in the intervals between animal calls. Your mind generates threats in every shadow, sees eyes in patterns of bark, hears footsteps in falling leaves. This is where singing helps. It asserts human presence, maintains morale, and provides rhythm that structures time. Talking to yourself isn't madness, it's survival strategy. Narrate your actions. Now I'm adding wood to the fire. Now I'm checking my water supply. This maintains cognitive function, prevents the dissociative fugue states that cause people to make catastrophic decisions. Indigenous guides traveling alone maintain constant verbal interaction with themselves, the forest, and the spirits they believe inhabit it, a practice that serves mental health regardless of spiritual beliefs. Track time through natural cycles. In the Amazon, certain birds call at dawn, others at dusk, creating an audible clock. Howler monkeys vocalize at sunrise with such regularity you could set a watch by them. Certain frogs begin their evening chorus exactly as daylight fades. Indigenous peoples navigate daily schedules by these biological rhythms, and you can too. Knowing whether it's mid-afternoon or evening affects decisions about gathering resources versus preparing shelter. As your 24 hours conclude, evaluate your physical state honestly. Injuries that seemed minor earlier might now show infection signs, heat, swelling, red streaks radiating from wounds. Amazonian bacteria are aggressive. Cuts that would heal cleanly in temperate climates become abscesses within days here. If rescue hasn't arrived and you show infection symptoms, your survival window narrows dramatically. You need to increase visibility efforts, more smoke, larger clearing around your shelter, anything that makes your location detectable from air. Dehydration manifests subtly before becoming severe. Dark urine, dizziness upon standing, decreased sweat production despite heat. These indicate you're behind on water intake. In tropical humidity, you lose fluids faster than thirst indicates. Force yourself to drink even when not thirsty. Indigenous peoples traveling through the jungle drink continuously throughout the day, not in large amounts at intervals. Evaluate your mental state too. Are you making decisions based on logic or emotion? Can you still think through multi-step problems? If confusion sets in, it's a medical emergency: heat stroke, dehydration, or toxin exposure. Stop any physical activity immediately, cool your body with water if available, and focus entirely on hydration. Many Amazonian deaths come not from single catastrophic events, but from mental deterioration causing poor judgment that accumulates into fatal mistakes. The jungle teaches humility to those who survive it. You are not the apex predator here, not the most adapted organism, not even particularly competent compared to creatures born into this ecosystem. A bullet ant knows the jungle better than you ever will. A jaguar navigates at night with precision you couldn't match at noon. Indigenous children travel confidently through terrain that terrifies trained soldiers. But you possess one advantage: the knowledge that humans have survived here for 10,000 years through observation, adaptation, and respect. Every skill you've employed, finding water, building shelter, reading the forest's moods, came from indigenous wisdom passed down through generations. When survival literature discusses primitive techniques, it reveals only the writer's ignorance. These methods are sophisticated solutions to complex problems, refined through millennia of trial and error, each failure becoming a lesson taught to the next generation. As dawn breaks on your second day, your 24 hours complete, assess whether rescue remains likely. If your situation was reported, if your location is known, waiting remains the correct strategy. Maintain your fire, keep your signals visible, conserve energy. Rescue teams know that lost people who stay put are 10 times easier to locate than those who wander. But if no one knows your location, if you diverted far off course before the emergency, then staying indefinitely means death by slow attrition. You'd need to become a jungle dweller, learning skills that take indigenous peoples years to master. Following water downstream remains your best navigation option. Rivers lead to rivers, which lead to settlements eventually. But that eventually might mean weeks of travel through the world's largest rainforest. The Amazon doesn't surrender its victims quickly. Rescue attempts span weeks, sometimes months. Percy Fawcett and his party vanished in 1925, searching for their lost city. Despite dozens of search expeditions, they were never found. The forest consumed them, their equipment, and even the locations where they likely died. Modern GPS, satellite phones, and EPIR beacons increase survival odds dramatically, but the jungle still claims lives annually. Experienced guides, trained soldiers, and adventurous tourists alike. This is why indigenous peoples approach the Amazon with ritual respect, acknowledging its power through ceremony before major journeys. They understand what outsiders often miss. The rainforest is not a park to be conquered or a resource to be extracted, but a living entity with its own rules, its own rhythms, and its own patience. It will wait centuries to reclaim what humans build. It will wait hours to take what humans carelessly offer. Your 24 hours of survival represent only the first test. If you maintained your fire, found clean water, built adequate shelter, avoided the jungle's deadly residents, and kept your mind functional through isolation, you've passed. You're still alive, still capable, and most importantly, still learning. Every hour in the Amazon teaches lessons written in immediate consequences. Ignore the jungle's warnings, and it corrects you with venom, fever, or disappearance. But respect its rules, learn from the wisdom of those who've lived within it for generations, and maintain the humility to understand that survival here is a privilege granted, not a right claimed, and you can emerge with your life intact. The Amazon tests whether you can set aside hubris long enough to become a student instead of a conqueror. Those who pass this test often describe it as transformative. You don't defeat the jungle. You survive it by becoming temporarily part of it, accepting your place in its hierarchy, following its ancient laws. The forest doesn't celebrate your survival with sunrise fanfare or dramatic rescue helicopters descending through golden beams. Your 24 hours simply end, and if you've made correct choices, you remain breathing, your heart still pumping, your mind still processing. That's the whole victory. In the Amazon, merely staying alive qualifies as success. As rescue finally arrives, the distant rotor sounds growing louder, the downdraft making treetops dance, the helicopter finally visible through gaps in the canopy. You realize something unexpected. You're relieved, certainly, grateful beyond words, but there's also a strange reluctance to leave, a recognition that you've shared space with something profound and ancient, that the jungle allowed you to persist within its boundaries, that you've glimpsed a world most humans will never experience. The indigenous people say, the forest remembers everyone who enters. It knows who came with respect and who came with arrogance. It decides who leaves and who stays forever, wrapped in vines and roots, becoming food for the endless cycle. You were permitted to leave. Not everyone receives that permission. Take the lessons with you. The Amazon's teachings extend beyond survival techniques into fundamental truths about human fragility, ecosystem complexity, and the importance of traditional knowledge that modern society often dismisses. Those indigenous tribes maintaining ancient practices aren't primitive peoples awaiting enlightenment. They're the experts, the PhDs of jungle survival, and their knowledge keeps them thriving where technology-dependent outsiders perish. Share your story, but share it with proper context. You didn't conquer the Amazon in 24 hours. You barely survived with luck and borrowed wisdom. The jungle remains undefeated, unchained, and fundamentally indifferent to human presence. It was here millions of years before humans evolved, and it will persist long after our species concludes. Your survival was a brief negotiation between fragile human biology and one of Earth's most powerful ecosystems, a negotiation the jungle permitted but could have terminated at any moment. This is the secret that separates those who survive from those who don't, understanding that the Amazon doesn't belong to you. You belong to it, temporarily, conditionally, and only if you follow rules older than recorded history. Indigenous peoples internalize this from birth. Outsiders who learn it quickly might see their second day. Those who don't typically become cautionary tales, another name added to the list of people the forest decided to keep. The jungle holds millions of such stories, whispered between trees, coded into the DNA of creatures who feed on what humans become. It remembers every mistake, every act of hubris, every instance where someone thought they knew better than 10,000 years of accumulated wisdom. And occasionally, it tells these stories to those willing to listen, through the sudden silence when a predator passes, through the water that flows clean or poisoned from cut vines, through the shelter that keeps you dry or collapses in wind. Your 24 hours in the Amazon were both an eternity and an instant, long enough to transform your understanding of human vulnerability, brief enough to be survivable with preparation and respect. The forest tested you with moderate intensity, which means it might have been curious rather than hostile. But make no mistake, if the jungle had wanted you gone, no amount of survival training would have mattered. It commands resources of venom, disease, predators, and simple overwhelming vastness that dwarf any individual's capabilities. So when you share this story, when you tell people you survived a night in the Amazon, remember to credit those who actually know this forest, the indigenous peoples who taught humanity how to extract water from vines, which plants heal and which kill, how to read the jungle's moods through animal behavior, and why respect matters more than bravery. They are the true Amazon survivors, living not for 24 hours, but for lifetimes, for generations, in harmony with an ecosystem that tolerates them because they never forgot they were guests. The Amazon doesn't need you to survive. But if you need to survive the Amazon even for just one rotation of the earth, remember this: bring humility, bring respect, bring willingness to listen to what the forest teaches. Bring fire-starting tools, water purification methods, and knowledge of basic shelter construction. But most importantly, bring the understanding that you are entering a realm where you rank somewhere between tapir and tree frog in terms of importance to the ecosystem. The jungle will decide if you leave. Your skills and preparation merely influence its decision. If the mysteries hidden beneath the Amazon's living canopy intrigue you, if you want to explore more secrets that the world's greatest rainforest conceals beneath layers of green, then journey deeper with us. Subscribe to Secrets of the Amazon Jungle, where every story reveals another wonder that the forest guards, sometimes jealously, sometimes generously, but always on its own terms. The jungle has 10,000 more secrets to share, and we're here to whisper what it allows us to hear.